Alright guys, let's get into the properties of React component. I have discussed the state of component and I also had to update and use the state. And I have started using kind of embedded JavaScript within a return statement which contain both HTML content and I guess just regular JavaScript. Like if statement you can map over properties and I will get into all at some point. For right now, I'm going to break out our high score HTML into its own component. So for in the source directory, I am going to create a new file and I am going to call it the highscore.js. No help with creating any other React component. The first thing you need to do is import an React and component from React. I am going to create the class with the same name as the file itself. So class highscore extends the component and now we are going to build a constructor which actually no less just create the render method and I am going to return I were beat high score test, so I'm gonna copy it and paste it right there, and then at the bottom of the file I'm going to say export default. I just realized that I could zoom in a bit and that will be probably help you guys out. So it is very simple component, just I'm gonna always print out the three element. For right now I'm going to save this and then in the application I have exported it as a high score. So I need to import it a high score. So important high score from now. It is the current directory and it is called high score and remove this, and for right now I'm just going to embed it high score. So the way this is done, just like in our index.js file where I wrote the application here, just like in our index.js file where I wrote application here, and it's the component that I exported. When you embedded a component into your other component, it's written like, imagine it is kind of like this is an HTML element. So it's self-closing because there is no child element, and I will get into at any other point, but you could actually also write it. I'm just using the component, embedding them is very similar to working with HTML. So I'm gonna to save this, and now I actually need to open up a new terminal and get started again because of I am recording this on the different day than the last video. So into the demo directory, I just type npm start and hit enter. It's gonna to parse the application, it's going to compile it, and then it's actually going to open a new tab in my browser, which has just done, and it's loading now. Alright, so instantly we see we have a problem. The component is embedded and it is always printing it out. Even I do not beat the high score. Now something I mentioned previously in the React developer tool. So if you right click on that down here in the console, that is bring up, that's the new tab is called React. So when you click on it, it allows you to inspect the component themselves. See how that say high score. When I right click on that and go to the right here, it say the property are in the ftmz, and so that's the problem. What I need to do is to pass it in on the some property so that it only display when it is in fact above 10. So how we do that? You see this on and click event in the button. Use this as a reference how to use property. So in HTML, if you want to add as an D component, you do this. If you want to add a class to a component, you do that. That's the property of a DOM node. No, just a node. When you are working with classes like CSS classes in React, the class name is actually reserved in JavaScript using the class property. So you actually have to use the class name, and this will imply a CSS class name. So I'm not going to do that right now. Right now I am learning how to embed React properties. So in the high score, which is a self-closing element, I'm gonna drop down to the next line. I'm gonna to type in over 10. You can create any property that you want. So in CSS there are certain property that do certain things. So you can set a class name or ID even over element. So there is all property name that you can use in HTML for the most part. That are the predefined in React. When you are passing property, you just make them up however you want to. So in this case, I'm gonna to create a property called over 10, and I'm gonna to set it to this state over 10. So I'm gonna to do, in order to use JavaScript within the return method, you need to wrap it in the curly braces, and so that's what I'm gonna do here. If it is a variable property that you are passing in a problem, so you are gonna to wrap it with these curly braces. Now I'm gonna to hit save, and I'm gonna go back over to the Chrome, and if I right click on this component here and then go to the React, sometime it doesn't, but it just like an auto expand to that element. So I'm gonna to try again. It doesn't really save much time now, but once you like 30 level, it definitely save time to do it this way. Now you will see the high score over 10 equal false, and if I click on this on the right hand side, the property display over 10 false. Now up on the application level, we see props is an empty object, but we see that state is here and we can toggle this, it is a true or false. So let's go and click the button, and as we click it, we can see the count is updating in the bottom right now. If I go to the high score component, we will see the property is set to false. If I keep clicking the button when the state changing on the application, when over 10 becomes true, it will re-render the application component and determine which children component need to be re-rendered with the new property context. And in this instant, when I click the button one more time, high score will change. It will re-render with the new property of our 10 equal true, which is all managed by the state of the application. So you will see that the toggle over to true as soon as I click the button. If I come back into this component here and look at the props on the right, over 10 equals true, and then we can talk about this as well. If I wanted to, it's still displaying high score over 10 all the time, even when I haven't click the button 11 times. So what I am gonna do is go back over to Visual Studio and into our high score component that I am gonna to create if statement. So I create a if statement. So if this prop, so this is you access the property of this high score component. If this props over 10, and then you are gonna to return this. No, the interesting thing in React, every component needs to return something from the render method. If I just leave this like that, and I believe that I will get an error in the console. So let's go back over here. It says nothing was returned from the render, and so that's mean we always need to return something. It actually tells you here that what to do if you want to return nothing return now. So that's exactly what I am gonna do with I am going to return. So now I am gonna save back over to our component, and I'm just click this button. And if I right click here and inspect the page, I will see that the component high score is being rendered, but there is no content of that component because over 10 is false. Now keep an eye down here, because what happened is as soon as I hit 11, that component is going to re-render. It is going to rephrase that if statement, and it's going to return content now, be it high score of 10. And now in React you can also pass the integer, string or boolean. You can also pass the function. So I'm gonna to pass in the function, and it's sort of, well, actually I am done that right here in well. So on click, if a is a property that gets sent to the component, so I'm gonna do the same right here. So on the reset, and again you can name this whatever you want. So I'm gonna to capture the event, and I'm gonna to kind of pipe it over this reset count, and I would like to do this to take in the event if I wanted to. So now I am going to write a new method called reset count that's gonna to take an event, and in this method that I'm gonna to do is reset. The state to count is 0 and over 10 equal false. So this dot set state count, it's gonna be 0 and over 10 it's gonna be a false. I am gonna to save this and know that I am pass this property in where we actually need to use it here. So in the h3 element, I am going to create a button. I am going to say on click. So I am going to capture the event. So that is a over to this crop on reset. I'm gonna just make this button say reset. So once we hit 10 or once we hit 11, actually that will be reset the score. Okay, so now we have got the bit high score of 10, and we see the component render here. There's button, and when we click this, it's going to reset the parent to 0 and over 10 to false. So reset and return the state of application to default, which was 0 and false. Now by default this button click takes an event parameter. So what we can do is in the stats, when the function call that's a property function or any other function that this safe side parameter being input and output. I don't need to do all this fancy JS. Alright, I can just erase this, have the method name and don't pass it anything. So I'm gonna to save this and then application just to prove that it still gets the event. I'm gonna to console log event is, and I'm gonna to save this and back over to our application. I'm gonna need to click this button until we get to 11. And note this reset button is here. I'm gonna go to into the console. I'm gonna to click reset and we can see that we did get the event. So let's begin this button image, and that's because again this button image the event has a single parameter, and this function takes in the event has a single parameter has defined right here as the right here. Sorry, wrong on the click. Now we can do this again here as well, because this method takes in the event and the initiated button image the event has a single parameter. So let's erase this and the rest. So this is just a dot, so that's the name of the function with no parameter specified. It's going to take care of that function automatically. So I'm gonna to save. I'm gonna to back over to application. So I am in the console. I'm gonna click until we get to 11, and then I'm gonna to reset, and then the event is still part. So that is working with property, both method and variable, and how to use them and how they work, really how they automatically update as necessary. And this is the part of the reason why React can be so fun to work with, because it manages all the re-rendering and want to do it largely on its own. Although I can guess encourage to make or not make certain update as we go through. I think you really understand this video. If you like this video, do not forget to comment in the comment section below and push the bell icon and subscribe button. I will see you guys in my next video.